The Popular Democratic Movement, PDM, held what it termed the Real State of the Nation address, the first of which was held last year. We have the president of the official opposition in studio with us to talk about the reason for his address and issues tackled at the platform. Good evening, viewers, and a warm welcome to One Exclusive. I'm your host, Joseph Sheefeni. Joining me in studio is the leader of the official opposition, the Popular Democratic Movement, or PDM, Mchenry Venaani. Mr. Venaani, welcome to One Exclusive.
Thank you very much. I'm obliged to be here. Good evening, viewers.
The Popular Democratic Movement recently held what it called the Real State of the Nation address. Can you tell us what is the idea behind that?
Well, I think first and foremost, it must be noted into context that the state president of the country is required by law, which is the constitution of our republic, to deliver after every budget debate a state of the nation. But the president is also expected to give a real analysis of what has happened in the last 12 years, plus providing his policies. That's one. Two, in other political jurisdictions, parliamentary jurisdictions, South Africa, Europe, United States, and everywhere, the president, when he delivers a state of the nation, that debate is dissected by opposition, and the person that must have the first right of reply is the leader of the official opposition, which is myself. But in our parliament, that debate is smothered, that you don't have a reply of the state of the nation. Therefore, as a political gesture to hold government to account, the man who has to do the right of reply, in my name as leader of the official opposition on the State of the Nation address, will hold a real State of the Nation where we tell the nation what we think about the analysis of the country and how we view what the president has said, that it is not in tandem with the real situation on the ground. Now, many people would argue, why call it real and not a reply to the State of the Nation address? But that is, in law, called what is called invitation to treat. If I'm selling a car and I said my car is the best or my car is the fastest, you can't hold me accountable and say, why are you calling your car fastest if it is only running 80 kilometers an hour? That's an invitation to treat. So a name doesn't really matter, but what it is a right of reply that we are denied in the National Assembly, that we ought to have, that is denied in the National Assembly. And therefore we would hold, as an active opposition party in the country, we will hold a right of reply through a real State of the Nation address where we dissect and analyze what are the issues that are confronting our country, the real situation in our view.
But during the State of the Nation address by President Geingob, you were given a chance to ask questions and to engage the head of state. Are you saying that there wasn't enough?
No, you don't do a right of reply. You are replying on the issues, not the questions. You are only allowed to ask 5 questions. And even in our own parliament, our National Assembly, the leader of the official opposition has unlimited time to ask questions. But I'm allowed to ask the same question as other party leaders that have no unlimited time, deliberately to smother debate in the House. So we are saying, as a party that is responsible to hold government to account as a political watchdog in the country, we would have a right of reply at a platform where we can dissect, read the document, and have a right of reply, just as the budget. So we are still calling upon our National Assembly to implement the rules of the joint rules of the House so that we can have a right of reply. For as long as we do not have a right of reply, we will hold an alternative real State of the Nation as an opportunity to reply, because we think that Namibians ought to know what is our view on what the president is saying, because it's a right given to all parliamentarians across the world. It is denied in Namibia. We must ask the question why.
Speaking of what the president is saying, at the State of the Nation address, the president reiterated yet again that the Namibian House is quite stable. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think there are a number of yardstick and tools to measure stability. We could be a country at peace with ourselves. Perhaps if he means that stability, I agree with him. But if it is a socio-economic trajectory, we are not stable at all. How can we be stable if we have 67,000 young graduates, people that are trained, that cannot get jobs in the country? You have an unemployment rate that is nearly hitting over 40%. You have an unemployment rate of the young that is that is exceeding 60% of the country. You have a housing crisis where the young cannot be able to rent in a country of their birth. They can't access land. There are not enough service land in the country. You are sitting with Namibians that now during the rainy seasons are sitting in a situation where they are washed away. We're just talking about a family that I'm visiting very soon that was washed away because of exilic poverty conditions in which our people find ourselves. You're sitting with a situation where municipalities are inundating residents by demolishing their homes without court orders. We are sitting with people, fishermen in Wolfish Bay, 4,000 of them that have no jobs from the sea that they used to work from. You are sitting with a number of crises. The last 12 months, and this is why we are saying that the government must come and tell the real state of the nation. The last 12 months, we have seen the worst government's performance in terms of their own water utilities and electricity. Their own utilities were cut. Government couldn't function in areas such as Aranos. Farmers had to bring in water from their farms and bring generators to help government, to veterinary offices to be able to work. So why are we not being told about these things that is happening in our country? Soldiers, 1,000 soldiers had to be sent home because there's no food in the barracks. It has never been seen in our country since the independence of the last 28 years where soldiers are sent home. That's the lowest moral that you can send. We are seeing defense spending in areas that do not bring and retrofit the socio-economic trajectory. We are spending another 1 billion on a highway that will take people to the airport. But how does the 1 billion help the young? How does the 1 billion take the people that are trapped in the poverty? We are having the highest one of the highest Gini coefficients in the world. What are we do? How is that 1 billion working towards bringing down that high Gini coefficient? How does it address poverty? You are sitting with nurses, trained nurses that are striking, that want jobs because they're sitting at home and they don't have jobs. So in terms of that stability, on the socio-economic stability of our country, we are not stable. Politically, we are stable. It's a country we are at peace with ourselves. We are a stable country. But we need to do more. If we were talking about stability, we should talk about stability that transcends and bring bread on the table of the Namibian people.
How do you think all those issues you just mentioned now, how do you think can it affect the peace and stability that the president was talking about?
See, poverty in itself has become now in academic studies, especially in security studies, have become a measure of tool of instability. That when your country is not stable, when your country has high poverty levels, your stability is questioned. So we should also not think that the political stability that we have and the poverty that we have, at one point, the youth bulge will be able to reach a tipping point where they would want to bring changes to the country. The poverty-stricken at one day will get tired of the elite. When you are opening newspapers, you're seeing ministers having shareholders, being the biggest shareholders in the mining concessions in the country, having the biggest fishing quotas in the country. It speaks to the people of this country that have we elected leaders that only look after themselves, or are we looking for the interests of the socio-economic, or of the people of Namibia as a general populace of our country? So these are some of the issues. So poverty is a serious, would put a serious bane on our stability if we do not really try to address it in a coherent manner. And I think that we need to do more. It's not the government's responsibility to create jobs, but it is their responsibility to create a conducive environment for jobs to be stimulated. What are we saying? If $200 million is stolen from SME Bank, no one is held accountable. There's no judicial inquiry. The president, when I probed this question to him about this judicial inquiry, he was saying, maybe. How can we tackle corruption front on if we are having answers of maybes? How can we tackle corruption if we have enacted a law called the Whistleblowers Protection Act that we have in this country? But there is no single cent budgeted for that act to be implemented in this country. How upfront are we tackling corruption? How are we tackling the corrosive collapse of the corporate governance in the country. Every day you are seeing a CEO being suspended, people engineering tenders going to the rich, and those people are not held to account. So these are some of the challenges that are challenging our country. And we are saying the real situation is not rosy. The real situation of our country is in dire strait. The health sector, there are mothers that are sitting at Ngela, that are sleeping in hospitals in Tsandi, people that are pregnant mothers that are sleeping outside because the hospitals cannot accommodate them. You're talking about stunting children. 1 out of 4 Namibian children, 1 out of 4 of them is having stunting problems. So meaning that malnutrition is a serious problem. That if 1 out of 4 Namibians that grow up in this country get an abnormal startup in life. What are we doing to address these challenges? And all we are seeing is that we are spending resources in areas that cannot stimulate the economy, in areas that cannot stimulate the growth of our people. For example, you are sitting in Windhoek, half of Windhoek, west of Windhoek, Namibians, in their thousands, are sleeping in shacks. But why don't we give that land to them so that all the people that are living in shanty towns can get land through urban resettlement scheme? Why don't we take the 1 billion that we want to spend on a highway, a bigger road for 48 kilometers to the airport, and build 1,000 blocks of flats for young professionals, so that you reduce, because the economy works. The economic forces works through supply and demand. The more the government intervene and supply more homes for rental, the rental prices of garages will go down. We can be able to address that problem. But ask yourself a question: do we need a $1 billion now to be spent on a highway? How many motorists do we have? Where is our priority? Look at our transport system. Young people Namibia doesn't have a transport system that is reliable. All of us, if a country is stable and doing well, you should go out of your job and know that after 20 minutes I'll be in a bus, next 10 minutes I'll be at the next place. Look at our transport system. A country of 2.5 million people, we can't run a coherent transport system that is reliable in our country. The taxi is about to go to the strikes. And we are saying, no, the Namibian house is stable. The Namibian house is not stable. It needs effort. We need an economic summit. We need an economic summit.
But they're saying our road system is one of the best in the world.
The road system is one of the best. The transport system doesn't exist. Go to Oshakati. Go to Keetmanshoop, go into Windhoek. If I say I want to move from the University of Namibia to the next point into Katutura, do I get to go there on time? No. If you jump into a taxi, it will take 3 hours to take you around because it is dropping other people, because we have not even put up a strong transport system that is reliable. And those are the things that we need to do. A country does not need to have leaders that have shares and concessions in all the mines. It doesn't need to have rich leaders that are declaring assets, which is a good thing because of their wealth. The country needs systems that works for everybody. And for as long as our state cannot work for everybody, we want to create that Namibia that works for you, for me, and for the rest of the world. I've seen leaders of the world. I've seen Warren Buffett running in the underground in New York. I've seen it with my own eyes. One of the richest men on earth goes on public transportation because their system is resilient, is accountable, it's accountable to the people, it is timeless. Those are the things that we need in Namibia.
Those are the alternatives that PDM have to offer you.
Those are the alternatives that we are offering on the table. That we need to change the game of housing. We have banks that are charging Namibians one of the highest mortgage lending rates. If you look at the lending rates of vehicles and houses, banks in Southern Africa are over-profiteering even from their European counterparts. These are issues that we are saying we are going to tackle in the National Assembly, so that we find a solution to the housing crisis that we have in the country. Now, for as long as you have a target, Harambee Prosperity Plan has a target of creating 10,000 jobs. I tell you, no jobs were created. More jobs were lost. Over 70,000 jobs have been lost, 60,000 jobs.
Wasn't that as a result of the economic situation?
You see, when you want to create jobs, you must also anticipate. You can't say, I want to do something and not anticipate the headwinds that would come. And the economic pundits must also be very careful that when you talk about the economic headwinds, are we the only country that is having the headwinds? Why is Mauritius growing with positive results? Why is Ethiopia growing with positive results? So there are countries that are managing their resources better. Had we started with fiscal consolidation while our resources were strong, we would have been far. To this point, we have collapsed the construction industry by giving all our major tenders and all our major procurement to foreigners. The Chinese took all the money to China. The construction industry is down. We have given all the jobs to the Chinese, and those that were shareholders with these contracts sold them out for lesser money, and we don't have the money in the country. So those are some of the things that we need to come back home. We need to come back home and start planning an economic summit that paves a way for a future that is stable, that works for everybody in our country. And we are calling upon the government to look at a possibility of calling an economic summit, that would address jobs, that would address the housing crisis, that would address infrastructure development. What is it that we need to put in place? Because the way that we are spending, our spending priorities are not in tandem with our developmental agenda. For example, we are spending 4.2% of our per capita of our GDP on defense. Americans are spending 4.8 per capita on their defense. A country that is fighting a war in Syria, that is in Afghanistan, that is nearly everywhere, in the Korean Peninsula and everywhere. Why are we spending so much on defense? And where are the defense priorities? By buying farms for 100 million and sending 1,000 soldiers back home? Is that a priority? So we should look at the priorities. The priorities are those Namibians that are being washed away in riverbeds. And that is the real state of our country. That our country's, the sanitation, we have a target, Harambee has a target of building 50,000 toilets in our country in the next 2 years. Last year already, for the last 12 months, they have only built 900. Now, are you telling me that you are going to achieve a target of 50,000 if you're only building 900 a year? So these are some of glaring statistics that are there, that we are putting out in the real state of the nation. That these are some of the things that we need to look at. We need to look at these things to be able to improve. In passing, the president said something very, very unusual. He said that he has found money, 5.2 billion, to modernize agriculture. Of course, you know how strong I am on agricultural modernization in this country, and jobs would be created. But where is this 5.2 billion coming from? Why was it not part of the budget? Where is this money coming from? Who approved this money? Now you went and borrow 1 billion for the road to go to the airport, that I think it's a luxury and not a necessity at this point in time. You go and borrow 5.6 billion for agriculture, that I think is probably important. You go and borrow another 5.4 billion to do rail infrastructure, which is positive. But the debt ratio, our debt was supposed to be 30% of our GDP. It is already 35%. If you add up this 11.5 billion, we would be standing at 43% of our country's economy. So what are we doing? Are we bequeathing a debt-trapped Namibians to future generations? What are we doing?
You're saying that it's about time that government brings together all stakeholders to discuss the way forth.
The way forward needs to be interrogated. We need to interrogate what is it that we want to achieve in the next 10 years as a country. We are talking about industrialization.
Especially on the part of the economy.
The economy. We are talking about industrialization. No country in the world, if you look at the industrial revolutions of whether the Europe, whether the Asian tigers and everywhere, no country has achieved industrialization without achieving agricultural mechanization and modernization. Food security, food sustainability is a first step towards industrialization. We are not producing our own food. We are a net importer of 80% of the foodstuff that we are having. What are we doing to agriculture? How are we giving impetus on agriculture for it to yield the necessary result? So when we are talking about some of these visions, they are good, they are grandiose, and it's good to have a vision. But the vision shouldn't be a mirage. It shouldn't be something that we look at, but that is not achievable. We should look at those things that we must achieve now, create the necessary job in our economy, hold people that are stealing the country's money and taking the country down. The corruption bane must be addressed. Make sure that we strengthen the ACC. Make sure that we strengthen the Whistle Protection Act. Make sure that we protect people that are whistleblowers. Make sure that we hold those that are stealing, even if they are our friends. We must make sure that we create a culture in this country that without fear or favor, those that are taking away from our people shall not be promoted. What we are seeing in this country, ministers that are being accused of corruption or possible corruption, we are just shifting people around. For as long as we are shifting corruption around, we are not going to address the socio-economic trajectory of this country. Therefore, I believe that we need an economic summit. The president said, he came close and said he's going to appoint a commission of 12 economists that are going to help him with the economy. I think those people will not solve the problem. They will come to the end result that this country must talk to itself. Industries must start talking to one another, with government, with political leaders. Let's talk about how do we kickstart a new Namibian revolution that is going to bring the necessary shared prosperity to all the people of our country.
What about some of the efforts that were already taken by government?
I applaud
stringent measures.
I applaud. The stringent measures are applaudable, but they're very late.
Because millions were saved.
You saved millions that were supposed to be saved 10 years ago. You were overspending 10 years ago and you are saving when you don't have the money. And by not spending the money now, the economy cannot kickstart because there is no kickstart plan to kickstart the economy, to make sure that the economy rebounds back. By not spending money on the economy, you are also losing. So all these dynamics, that's why I say you need an economic summit that people sit around the table and say, what is the path that we are going to put down that will bring prosperity to our people? So I give credit to the President for his initiative of bringing old age pension to those levels, because it has been a policy of our party for a number of years, and we're on record on that pension, and it is really trying to target the levels of poverty. It's not a panacea to poverty, but it is a commendable effort, and I've given him that credit when I was assessing Arambe. The food banks, I run across this whole country, my whole policy, public life, I go to the needy, I talk to the people over this country, in my private time and in my official time. And I know that the food bank is a good initiative because it helps to those that are needy. I know there are Namibians that are going hungry, but you can't have a food bank that has not a sustainable blueprint on it, that how the food, the farmers must be given incentives for them to provide for the food bank so that you keep the program sustainable. Now, the food bank is feeding South African companies and it's not feeding Namibian companies. What is the plan to make sure that the maize that we are giving or the rice that we are giving, it's coming from our own shores as opposed to coming from foreign shores? These are some of the things that we need to debate about, talk about as a country, and confide with ourselves as a nation and take the country forward.
All right, you've spoken to the people, but have you spoken to the President himself? Because I understand that you've tried several times to meet with the head of state to discuss these issues. Did you manage to meet with him?
There are many. The President is peddling many theories about me, about not meeting me. I have a record, I have a letter that came from the President on the 15th of January 2015. I got a letter from him where I've asked for a courtesy call to discuss the future of our country. And I had subsequent letters that I had written, maybe probably 4 or 5. He has many theories. The first year he said I was very boastful. That was the reason he doesn't want to meet me. The second year he said that I think I'm his equal, which I think is very laughable. The third year, last year, during the last SONA, if you just go and check your records, he said he's not going to meet somebody who meets him and denies him in a day. So the President clearly doesn't want to meet me. He wants to meet me at his terms. I respect him as an elder leader of our country. He's an old friend of mine in the National Assembly. We're very close to each other when he was a backbencher. If he doesn't want to see me, I made peace with it. I've moved on. If the President, because I can't wait for someone for 3 years to give me an appointment. And he knows that I meet his peers around the world. I meet presidents of the world, of stronger nations. It is because of the position that I hold in a country. So if my own President doesn't want to meet me, and every time he's theorizing about it, because we can lay the documents. He's saying, one of the last reasons that he said that no, Venaani writes letters to the media first. Of course, when I ask for a funeral of someone to be made a state funeral, I also inform I request the President, and I also inform the public that these are my intention. Open letters are normal in a discourse of democracy. But if the President doesn't appreciate an open letter, why not? Why should we hide the fact that I've asked him to provide a state funeral for Chief Fredericks of the South? I don't deal with secrets. There are matters that are secret, that I can put on one-to-one. There are matters that are of national interest, and if they are in the open, I put them in the open. So if the President doesn't want to meet the leader of the official opposition, so be it. I don't take away from him. But one thing that I must put on record is that President Geingob has no record. In fact, he has no record of me disrespecting him. In fact, he is on record praising me as one of the most respectful opponents that he has ever had. He's on record, and I can give him an eclipse when he apologized to me during the election campaign of 2014. So to say that I come from a bad house as a gift when I ask very sensitive questions to him, I think it was very, very low of him, because I've never, ever played the politics of the individual. I always play the ball. So the President is wrong by doing that, and as an elder, I'm an elder myself, I did not reciprocate. I could have reciprocated by judging my character, but I didn't want to judge the president's character. I will forever continue to hold him account without fear or favor.
What about the fact that he's managed to see leaders from much smaller political parties, and yet he continues to deny seeing you?
That is very laughable, because he says I think I'm his equal, right? But he sees people that are from smaller parties. Well, perhaps those are his equals, and he sees me as not his equal, so I'll let it be.
But you are his counterpart in some respects.
I am his counterpart in some respects. Of course, that's why I'm given the first right of reply to his asking him questions. So in that respect, I do. So State House must come clean and apologize to me for what they have done to me, because it's wrong to let me wait for an appointment where you have written me a letter, that I have written me a letter for 3 years. I'm waiting. Not even the Chancellor of Germany or President of Ghana or any other president that I've been meeting around the world would make me wait for 6 months before giving me an answer.
So basically now you've just given up.
Well, as a person, you see, you are not in a situation where you can force courtesy. I can't force courtesy on someone. The president has said something very fundamental that I agree with him, which I credit him for. He said, of course, yeah, at all events I recognize you. Fine. I also recognize him at all events. There's no way that I would speak at an event and he's there and he doesn't recognize me. But I give him credit that he's one of the leaders in the country that recognizes the leader of the official opposition. He has made it even part of the state protocol today. Other people have followed from him. I give him credit for that. But does it give him the right to let me wait for 3 years to meet me? Maybe he doesn't want to meet me. Because I know there are many stories that are being spin in State House. That if we talk to Venaani, won't he say that we have achieved this because of our engagement? So there are a number of fears that they have, but they let them deal with those fears. Venaani is a very solid guy. I'm on my own. If he doesn't want to meet me, I meet others. Life goes on, doesn't stop.
Right. Are there certain areas where you would take your head off for the current administration?
Well, I think there are areas, and I say them all the time in Parliament. I gave credit to the President, to his government, for having called an investment conference. That was a very good initiative. I participated. Some investors even wondered. They said, you are an official opposition leader. Yes, but you are so patriotic. You're sitting in meetings, you are selling your country. So it's something good that I give credit. I also give him credit for having initiated a system of accountability for ministers to have performance appraisal. Although I disagree with the levels of really appraising ministers, I agree with the effort of having to hold people to account for what they are doing. That's a credit. I give him credit for having implemented our policy on the pensions. I just said that. I give him credit for bringing the food bank initiative. It's a good initiative, but it must just be supported with other instruments so that it becomes sustainable. So there are a number of areas that I agree with our government, but there are a lot of other social, economic areas that I disagree with them. I disagree with them building a highway to the airport. That will not improve our exports and imports of goods. That would just give comfortability to a few people with Mercedes benches going up and down to the airport, while people are being washed away on the benches of Windhoek where we are sitting. Leadership must have a sense of accountability, and I think we need to move away from self-centered leadership to accountable leadership for the people.
What is your message to the general public?
My message is the following. We have a great country. We should all remain patriotic. Our better days lies ahead of us. We need to talk to one another, engage and heal this country. Talk to one another so that we find lasting solutions to the problems facing our people. The hardships and the pain that they are carrying today, the citizenry of our people, know that there are people that care for you, that want to see a better Namibia for you. And I'm going to work towards that better Namibia.
All right, Mr. Venaani, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
All right. And with that, we have come to the end of the show. Thanks for watching. And for me, Joseph Sheefeni, it's goodbye.